man to resist tyranny at every turn. Every man will either watch his freedom stripped away or take action to protect what he loves. Introducing the A3, the newest revolutionary body armor from Armored Republic. The A3 is the new standard for lightweight multi-hit body armor. A3 plates are incredibly light at 4.6 pounds. The patented design captures fragmentation while remaining multi-hit capable. The A3 will stop up to M80 ball, yet comes in at only 0.7 inches thick. The A3 is the thinnest NIJ.06 compliant or certified composite standalone plate that includes the drop test. The A3 is the first of its kind, patent pending, that combines an alloy strike face with polyethylene backing, revolutionizing body armor technology by providing strength and durability while remaining sleek and maneuverable. The A3 is the new standard in lightweight body armor. The fight against tyranny just got stronger.
Homemade peanut butter, strawberry jam.
Yes.
You know they got buffalo ice cream.
Who's they?
We're gonna talk. They got to stick around for this. That's what's got to happen.
Oh,
I don't know. Maybe buffalo ice cream is scaring people away.
I don't know.
What is
it
buffalo
sounds so good. It comes from buffalo milk.
It's from buffalo milk.
Yeah. Hey, y'all, welcome to CrossPolitic on the Fight Laugh Feast Network. Pastor Toby Chuck Knox on the Water Boy. It's good to be with you. You have two actions that you need to take at the front of the show. You got to download the app and you got to become a club member. It's that simple.
Wow.
And then maybe we could get some buffalo ice cream in our club portal.
Wait, what were the two action items?
Download the app and join our club.
Okay.
You said buffalo. I kept on thinking like buffalo wild wings. I'm like buffalo wings.
Yeah, it's like buffalo flavored ice cream. I know that's what I thought it was too.
That's a little gross. That's a little gross.
Yeah.
That's where he draws the line.
Yeah.
Kepler is an online marketplace for classical Christian education that assures parents maintain their agency without forfeiting the assistance and expertise of qualified conservative Christian teachers. Kepler offers university model courses in the classical tradition that fit your schedule and your budget. Visit www.kepler.education. That's kepler.education. And use our simple search tool to find the course and the teacher that meets your child's needs. Or simply ask for help to get assistance from a real human being. I always love that. Kepler, where there are real human beings. It's a great tagline. And in a world of AI and all kinds of other things, it's, where you're like, can I talk to a real human being? Kepler's like, yes, you can. If you want to educate your children well, yes, you can.
I was just thinking about the fact that anybody who's listened to CrossPolitic will never have the excuse when they stand before the Lord, when he asked them, why didn't you raise your children in the fear and admonition of the Lord?
Right.
I didn't know. I didn't have any resources.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, whatever.
Well, we got real human beings.
Whatever. I know your podcast feed. Every show, these guys are talking about how to raise your kids right.
Right. Classical conversations, Kepler, Logos Online.
What do you need?
Right. What do you mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
All kinds of stuff. Yeah. Chris Hume, we're really grateful to have with us, is a U.S. Air Force veteran, author, and journalist with the Lancaster Patriot. And we are grateful to have him on to talk about buffalo ice cream, or at least the Department of Agriculture trying to take away our buffalo ice cream.
That's right. You don't touch our buffalo ice cream.
It's tea time.
Chris, thanks for coming on CrossPolitic. And what happened at this farm you're at?
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here with you guys. Thanks for having me on. Yeah, speaking of water buffalo milk is the most delicious milk you will ever taste. So I highly recommend it. Now, Amish Miller is an Amish farmer here in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. He also has camel milk, I believe.
Yes.
You name it, he's got it.
Camel cheese, which I heard is like really
cheese.
Good.
Well, it makes sense now why the government wants to shut it down.
It's too good for the people. They'll start thinking freedom thoughts.
That's so true.
Yeah, raw water buffalo milk is the people's beverage, the beverage of liberty.
Wow.
Now, here's what's going on here in Lancaster County, though. So, obviously, Lancaster County here in Pennsylvania, the home of the Liberty Bell and freedom and all that, right? Well, for years, Amish Miller, an Amish farmer, has been serving his neighbors, serving his community, serving people. People drive hours to come here to Lancaster County to buy Amish Miller's products. Now, why do they do that? Because Amish Miller provides food to them outside of big food, outside of big pharma, The FDA, they allow, I think, 10,000 additives in our commercial food. And a lot of those additives have been banned in Europe, by the way. But in America, you have the commercial food industry regulated. Of course, the big lobbyists, these big companies, they get in there, they go to Washington, D.C. or Harrisburg, the capital here in PA. And, they lobby these politicians and they get these regulations passed. Now, Amos Miller said, I don't want anything to do with that. My customers want natural food. They want organic food, no preservatives, no additives. We don't want to follow these regulations that really hamper Amos from giving his customers what they want. So for decades, he's been providing raw milk, cheese, lots of dairy products, meat,
ice cream.
His strawberry smoothies are phenomenal.
Stop it.
His stuff's not cheap, but it's worth its weight in gold. This food it's the best food that I've ever tasted. So you can actually, there's some products now. Well, let me not get ahead of myself here. So years ago, the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture caught wind of what Amos was doing and said, "Now wait a minute, you haven't bowed the knee to the state and asked our permission to obey God and serve your neighbor. You were out here." Now, keep in mind, Amos Miller does not sell his food in grocery stores. He doesn't even sell it at farmers markets, at roadside stands. He has a private buying club where people either drive sometimes hours to come to his farm and buy the products, or he has a network where he ships this food out to buyers who choose to buy his food. They're not going to the grocery store and picking up a product from Amos Miller and saying, well, I'm not sure where this came from. They know exactly what they're getting. Now, the government came in years ago, and the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture wanted to really bring him under their boot, as it were, and say, we want to control you. You need to jump through these hoops. You need to do what we say if you're going to serve your neighbor. Well, they were having some problems doing that. They ended up enlisting the help of the federal government. I think they tried the FDA at first, and then they turned to the USDA, and there was a huge ordeal with them coming in here telling Amos, you're not allowed to sell your meat. What Amos would do, he'd raise his own beef, his own cattle, and he would butcher it here on site on his premises here, and his customers would come and buy it. Right? Seems pretty simple to me. Willing seller, willing buyer.
Yeah.
Well, the federal government said, no, you're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to butcher your meat and sell it to customers. You need to send it to a USDA approved facility. Now, Amos and his customers did not want that. There's even additives added. There's different additives added. There's even citric acid. Some people say, well, there's no harm in that. But Amos's customers, many of them, take their health very, very seriously. They've done their own research. They made the decision to say, we don't want our meat adulterated with anything, even if it's seemingly benign. We know the government has never gotten anything wrong in the past, but we should trust them, whatever they say about our food.
The government's batting 1,000.
Yeah, batting 1,000. But still, some customers are crazy enough to think, well, we'd like to make our own food choices, if that's okay with you, Uncle Sam. And the federal government said, no, that's not okay. Amos, that was an ongoing battle for years. Unfortunately, Amos had to pay $80,000. You'll hear a dog barking in the background here. I'm on the property right now of Amos's farm. I got cows in front of me, horses off to the side. Beautiful country, by the way. Really represents, America, freedom, self-sustaining, and the government doesn't like that. But the government came in and said, no, you can't do that. Pay us $80,000. Send your meat off-site to be butchered by a government-approved butcher. By the way, speaking of water buffalo, as I understand it, water buffalo is not regulated by the government, and therefore Amos is free to butcher that here on site and sell to his customers. Now, when I first heard that, I said, what in the world? This doesn't make any sense. The government's allowing him to butcher water buffalo, but not your typical, cattle. Why? Well, it turns out this is not about safety. It's about money. Water buffalo is not regulated. There's not enough water buffalo farmers in the nation to make it worth the government's time to regulate it. So he's free to do that. But anyway, the federal government said, look, you have to get your meat processed off site. Amos, he did consent to that. All right. And there's, some of his customers were disappointed with that, but his legal team is still fighting to get that reversed or to allow him to do that. And so that's kind of where we were at just until about a week or two ago. Amos was continuing to serve his customers his dairy. He was sending some of this meat off site, much to the disappointment of some of his customers. And then I get a phone call that the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture is on Amos's farm and he's being raided once again. So I come here This is last week, I believe, actually 2 weeks ago. And there's state troopers here, Pennsylvania state troopers, Pennsylvania Department of Ag employees who have entered into his facility. They don't allow me in, but they're not even allowing Amos Miller, the owner, in to see what they're doing. And ostensibly, they're taking product to test. You know, who knows what they did when they were in there. After several hours in there, they finally left. They seized some of his property. Now, they had a search warrant, and we can get into those details in a moment if you want, but they seized some of his property. And then they went around and they put stickers all over his walk-in coolers, his walk-in freezer. He probably has thousands of products in there waiting to go out to hungry people. And the state of Pennsylvania said,
They just slapped stickers.
you are not allowed to move this food. You're not allowed to sell this food. You're not allowed to even dispose of this food until we give you permission. We're in charge of this food. You don't have the freedom, even though you labored to produce it. Your employees labor to produce it. Even though you have customers that have paid you to purchase this food, you are not allowed to move it. And so that's where we are right now. The state of Pennsylvania has extended the detainment of his food, potentially another 40 days or so. And so there's hundreds of items that are just sitting in there. Many of them are going to go to waste. And here's the government. They're keeping us safe, right? So that's a nutshell of the situation, Gabe.
Wow. So you mentioned they got a search warrant, and I think we read a statement by Amos Miller's attorney, I think that happened right afterwards, that said that search warrant, though, was illegally obtained. Are you aware of this?
No.
I'm aware of that statement. I don't have the facts to speak to that. Robert Barnes is Amos's attorney. He said it was illegally obtained. I'm not sure exactly. I would really like to hear what he would say regarding that. But there's a lot of problems with this search warrant. I mean, and perhaps it has to deal with the authority of the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture to request something like that. The search warrant, it basically goes back to 2016 and says, it's basically the story of how the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture has been just surveying, doing surveillance on Amos Miller for almost a decade. And they say, well, in 2016, someone might have gotten sick. There was someone who allegedly died from his milk. We've debunked that. It's a false claim. There was a woman who had cancer who moved from, I think, South Carolina to Florida. She moved in with a friend who was a member of Amos's buying club. She had a stroke previously. She had cancer. She ended up dying. And after her death, they found listeria in her system. Now, it wasn't even proven that she had consumed any of Amos Miller's milk. And yet you'll hear that claim over and over and over again that, Amos Miller's milk, his products, are deadly. The search warrant stated that there were two individuals, underage individuals in different states, I think New York and Michigan, who were sick and had allegedly, once again, this isn't proven, consumed eggnog from Amos Miller's farm. And that was enough for a judge to say, all right, you may go into his property. The search warrant is very broad. Go into any of the buildings, go in day or night. I'm glad they didn't come at night. I mean, can you imagine the horror of these agents rolling up on this farm at nighttime? But this judge said, hey, go in there, do whatever you need to find any evidence. Here's his great crime. Find any evidence that he has manufactured milk and sold it to people. And that's really, it's the nanny state saying, you have not bowed the knee to us. You did not ask us permission to obey God and serve your neighbor. And so we are going in, and I think the state of Pennsylvania, I think they really are committed this time, and I hope they fail. I hope God thwarts their plans. They're committed to really bringing Amos to heel, because he has stood firm for freedom for so long, and this is not over yet.
Chris, do you know the history of these agricultural laws, how they came about, how we've basically given away our rights as citizens to the Department of Agriculture?
How do we get here?
Yeah, how do we get here to this moment?
Yeah, well, that's a great question, and it brings in one of the things I've been doing. I've been challenging these conservative, freedom-loving politicians here in Lancaster County and Pennsylvania to stand against this order. This is something where the government has come in and said, you are not allowed to feed hungry people. I mean, do we understand? I mean, this is like communism here in America. And people are still blind to it and saying, well, you just got to follow whatever the government says. So the government here is saying, you cannot feed people with this food. We have rumors of food shortages throughout the nation, throughout the world. And here we have a man who's serving his neighbor, and we're told we can't, eat this food. Now, I've contacted some representatives, and of course, what they say is, well, there was a law, and we gave authority over to the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture. And so here are these men who we vote in year after year who keep making man-made law after man-made law after man-made law, and then they dig this hole, and we keep voting them in. And now they say, well, my hands are tied as a politician. I can't do anything because the law has given them authority. So really, the answer to your question is, how do we get here? Is we've abandoned biblical law, which is so simple and so beautiful. And you never need to be confused if you had a just society about knowing, hey, am I doing the right thing or not? But the system we've created with man-made law, you can never know if you're doing the right thing. And Amos Miller, no matter how much care he takes into making sure his animals are healthy, I mean, my goodness, I'd rather eat from Amos Miller than thousands of restaurants that are signed off by the government. His animals are healthy. I've been through his facility. It's clean. It's organized. But Amos Miller and you and I, in this society, we don't know if we're doing right or wrong according to man's law, because the law is always changing. He's having a new law. You never know what's righteous and what's unrighteous in man's eyes. But of course, Amos Miller, he's broken no law of God. But the system we've created, this administrative law, these made up laws and this made up authority. And so I can't get one single politician in Pennsylvania, even though the law that, the people who partook of the Boston Tea Party and the founding fathers, I can't get one of them, first of all, to just say that Russell Redding is a tyrant and the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture needs to leave Amos alone. But second, to come here and defy the order and practice civil disobedience and drink some of this milk. They're cowards. They're not willing to do anything. Wow. I mean, we're not even the Boston Tea Party they destroyed some property. I mean, I can look at that and critique that and say, maybe they shouldn't have done that. We're talking here about a man who has produced a product that he wants people to consume, and the state says, don't eat it, let it rot, and we'll throw it away. So to me, all these conservative politicians, they're part of the problem. They, probably, some of the guys that are opposing coming here and defying the order are the same ones who voted on the ag bill or the food bill that gave the authority to the state to tell you and I what we can and can't eat.
Man, talk about I'm thinking about how we got here, Gabe, that question and everything that Chris is explaining to us. But like people, we got this in 2020. Like
that's
like,
right.
Like
the whole pass you taking from it. Go ahead.
The whole COVID thing.
Come on, man.
Like, where did the government think they had the right to tell you to put a mask on your face,
to stand 6 feet apart?
Stand 6 feet apart. They say that you can't sing in your churches, you can't go to your churches, you can't go to work, you can't provide for your family, you can't go get basic services, and you need to get this jab in your arm.
Yeah.
Can't go outside.
You can't go outside.
And Chris is having a hard time getting politicians to show up. Yeah. We couldn't get the church to show up in COVID 2020.
Exactly.
You couldn't get pastors to scream out.
But I think people need to understand the connections here. Like, don't miss the connections. How do we get here? It's the same. Like it was by a series of similar steps that got us to COVID. It's the similar steps that took where government officials thought that they could tell you how to take care of your health. I mean, this is the same thing.
Exactly.
They are saying this is not healthy. Well, they're stepping in to what is clearly delineated in Scripture as the jurisdiction of the family. Mm-hmm. God has ordained the magistrate to protect us, to punish criminals when crimes have actually happened, not to prevent something that is maybe possibly going to happen because of the way you make your milk or your cheese or your beef. But we have allowed this. We have invited this, as he said. We've been electing these people over and over again. We've asked them to take care of us, to replace our fathers and our mothers. Yeah. And this is again, how do we get here? How do we get to a place where there's no respect for marriage? How do we get to a place where little boys are being given puberty blockers and girls are getting mastectomies? How are you getting to the place where trannies are in your schools? Well, because you let the government take care of your health. You let the government take care of your kids. You let the government, rather than the family government doing what it was called to do, you've handed that over to civil government, and that's how we got COVID.
You couldn't even say ivermectin. or hydroxychloroquine?
No, without getting your show kicked off. And
Okay, right?
Yeah.
You couldn't say those things. We got kicked off of YouTube
that's
for that.
hate speech.
Because of you trying to figure out how to take care of your family so that grandma don't die.
Because someone might do that.
Right.
And
it's horse pace. You can't buy it anymore.
They might, whatever.
This fires me up because there's a tendency for us to think that they will come for, Amos Miller, but they won't come for you. You better get that out your head.
Right.
Today it's Amos Miller and tomorrow it's you.
Yeah.
Do you have vitamin D in your house?
Yeah.
You can't have that, sir.
Yeah.
You got all that vitamin C in your house?
Yeah.
It's not approved.
Where'd you get it?
Where'd you get it from?
Who manufactured it?
Yeah, exactly. Is it approved from the government?
And did you pay all the fees?
Are you doing home births? We don't do that.
Yeah.
That's not allowed. You have to have, that was illegal in Georgia. This is all connected. You know what I'm talking about?
Right. Well,
homeschooling was illegal in Texas.
And homeschooling?
Yeah, I mean this is exactly.
Yeah,
and
right.
so.
Well, or if you don't stand 6 feet apart while you're singing in front of City Hall, we'll arrest you.
I'm so hot right now. I'm about to sweat. I'm upset because this just reminds me so much. And Chris, you're sitting here. I'm going to give you a chance to talk again. I'm going to ask you a question in a second. But I'm sitting here thinking, I would go to work in the morning and I would come home and I would get pulled over going to work and I would get pulled over coming home. And I just got to the point where I'm like, we must be doing really good with our crimes here, huh? Because there's no bad guys to catch.
Yeah.
Are we at the point in Pennsylvania that there's no real bad guys to catch anymore?
No.
We're going after the Amish? That's what we're doing?
My goodness. Yeah, that's for sure.
Right?
I mean, remember.
The streets are so clean.
Remember when they arrested, who was this? Was it James Coates?
That's
in
right.
Canada?
Uh-huh.
That's right.
Because the Canadians were even more.
And then they built a fence around his church.
But here's the thing: they arrested him, and remember
as a pedophile.
Same
Yep, that's right.
day
That's right.
They
Come
booked
on now.
Pastor James Coates.
Yep.
They released a convicted pedophile.
Yep.
And released a memo warning the community that they
That they're releasing him.
That they were releasing him, and that he had a high probability of committing new crimes.
Wow.
My goodness.
Pastor, why don't you read this?
Yeah.
I got a question for Chris.
Okay, I got a question for him too. But let's read this out real quick. Public houses or pubs are not just places to drink beer, wine, cider, or even something a little stronger. They're also a unique social center. Very often the focus of community life in villages, towns, and cities throughout the length and breadth of the world. Of course, these are all going to be outlawed by the FDA very soon, but so enjoy them while you can. We here at CrossPolitic hope to emulate that for you and yours. That's why you should grab yourself a pub membership at fightlaughfeast.com. We need you on this ride with us. We need your help, and we want your fellowship as we do it. So pull up a chair, grab a pint, and join us on this ride at fightlaughfeast.com. That's fightlaughfeast.com. The pub, or Pub TV, this is the name of our app, and it's the name of our club. And it's the way you support what we're doing, and you make what we're doing possible, and you also make it possible for us to grow and to continue to tell stories like this one.
Yes.
Where the feds are taking away the freedom of people to actually grow their own food, buy the food they want,
sell it to their neighbors,
to do good to their neighbors.
My goodness. All right, Chris, go ahead.
Well, I wanted to bring an additional angle here.
Yeah.
Part of I don't think we've been kind of stewing in this soup, whatever you want to call it, for a long time. So we don't understand
Secular gumbo.
Status soup. Yeah,
status gumbo.
Tyrannical status
communism.
Soup. And we don't understand like how free we should be.
Right.
We've gotten used to a certain form of slavery.
Yeah.
We're like Israel and Egypt.
Because I was reading through Chris's article on this.
Yeah.
And he just references this. He says another Amish farmer, Reuben King, also offended the status deity, when he served his neighbors by selling rifles and shotguns to them.
Oh.
These are good Americans.
And he said, this guy is sentenced, Reuben King, his sentence is next week, and he faces potential jail time for
selling metal.
So give me a little context to this. It sounds like Reuben was like making his own rifles and guns and selling them. Oh, what's going on there, Chris?
No, I don't think he was even making them. I mean, both these cases just reveal the insanity of man-made law and tyranny. In Reuben King's case, who's also an Amish farmer in Lancaster County, he was not even breaking a federal law. He was not even breaking a man-made law. The federal law says you only need a license to sell rifles and shotguns. He wasn't selling handguns or anything else. He was selling weapons that the federal government actually says you're allowed to sell without a license. But they said once you sell too many, then you might need a license. So again, speaking of the federal government and the state government, they were together on this as well. They conducted sting operations on Reuben King's farm to see how many rifles and shotguns he was selling. They ended up telling him, hey, you might need a license for this. We're not telling you have to get one, but you might need one. He said, okay, well, the federal law says I don't need one. I'm not going to get one. And then they come back in, confiscate 600 rifles and shotguns. He has a jury trial. The jury finds him guilty, and he faces potential jail time. I mean, it's insanity. I don't know which case is worse. They're both horrible. I mean, here's an Amish man, Reuben King. They don't have Social Security. I mean, we should have followed in their steps. They don't have that. They don't have a lot of the IRA accounts that other people have. Here's a man who was collecting, selling rifles and shotguns. He would sell them. He would keep them. They were a bit of an investment to pass on to his children, a bit of a retirement fund. And the state says, no, you're not allowed to do that. We're taking all your weapons.
Wow.
So, but what struck me about that, I was reading through that and I was like, oh yeah, that's illegal.
Yeah.
That's what my first thought was, like, oh, he probably was really brushing up to something illegal by selling guns.
But it's not.
It's not, and it shouldn't be.
Right.
That's the other thing is
absolutely.
like, I was stewing in that status soup when I read that.
Yeah.
I was like,
right.
Oh.
Well, Chris, can you tell me why Amos? I really want to know, like, you're around there. Why are they picking on Amos?
Yeah, why this dude?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think Amos represents the antithesis of the nanny state mentality, where our government wants not. I mean, you guys have already covered it. Our government wants nothing more than to feed us, clothe us, wipe our ass, and tuck us in at night. That's what the government wants to do. And because if we are dependent upon them, then we will comply with them in whatever they say. Okay, but Amos Miller, he represents an escape for many Americans. Most of his customers are actually not Amish. He represents an escape from that statist hellhole where you do not need the government to take care of you. He's a big farmer in the small farmer world. He's probably one of the bigger, smaller farmers, but more importantly, he's probably the biggest one who is operating outside of big food, outside of these regulations. And that is a threat to the state. I mean, I think the main thing, actually, to be honest with you, it's not about safety. I mean, there are hundreds and thousands of outbreaks of food. I mean, there was a recent E. coli, quote unquote, outbreak, and like 80% of the people reported to eat at Wendy's. Okay, now I have nothing against Wendy's. I don't care if you want to eat at Wendy's. But I feel much better eating food from Amos Miller than Wendy's. Okay, but go to these restaurants in Philadelphia, New York City, and tell me that you feel safer there than buying a gallon of milk from Amos Miller. I think, to be honest, at the end of the day, the State Department and the federal government, they'll be involved, I'm sure, one way or another. They can't justify their existence if they don't do this. I mean, what is the purpose of their existence if it is not to control us? If they were to embrace biblical law where it's justice between a man and his neighbor, if there was someone that Amos Miller wronged, then they could bring that case to the magistrate. Right. That hasn't happened, by the way. Right. No one has come to the state and said, hey, Amos Miller wronged me. The offended party here is the state. Wow. And so in the end, that's what makes me so mad about this. These statist politicians, we're just doing our job. We were elected to do this. You are potentially destroying the lives of this man, his wife, his children, his employees. Why?
Well, and
I think it's because they don't know what else to do.
And compromising the health of the people who are trying to get natural goods.
Yeah.
COVID. Right. Yeah. Inject poison.
Yeah. And just
poison into your body, but you can't buy, natural food.
Just doing our jobs. We heard that a few times, didn't we? Just doing our jobs. And again, it's just like this. That's the language so often that happens is when governments are corrupted and the TSA, we're just doing our job. Sorry, we're just doing our job. Yeah. And you mentioned earlier having a hard time getting any lower magistrates, any representatives or senators or whatever there in Lancaster County, there in Pennsylvania. I did notice, of course, that Thomas Massey, Representative Thomas Massey, he retweeted some of your work and looks like he's supportive. I'm curious. Has he spoken out any further, or is there any kind of network, even more broadly, of lesser magistrates that would be willing to stand with Amos Miller?
I wish there were. I do appreciate what Thomas Massey did with that tweet. I think some people are kind of disappointed he hasn't done more. I mean, I do understand he's in a completely different state, but he could kind of push it more. But to answer your question, there doesn't seem to be, I have no knowledge of any magistrates that are really standing against this, other than Massey's tweet. But you hit up before. I mean, it's the same issue with the church. It's the same issue in the state. We look back in the past and praise, those who went before us who were bold and defied tyranny in the state. We praise those Christians in the past who were willing to meet, even if it cost them their lives. But not today. We don't do that now. I think there's someone, you may have heard of him. He said something like, that the careful men will come later, praising these faithful men. I think he's out there in Idaho, whoever said that. But that's what we have happening here.
Yeah.
I mean, you'll laud the people in the past. You have a moment to stand against tyranny. Yeah. You don't do it. I'm thankful that, that there was one pastor out here, my pastor, Joel Saint of Independence Reformed Bible Church. I'd like to see the pastors get behind this, but I'm not hearing much from them either. Yeah. I mean, it doesn't matter. Yeah. Once, just do whatever the state says. And, but like you said, it's not going to end. If Amos Miller is not free to serve his neighbor, if I'm not free to buy food from him, where does it end? It's not crazy to think, okay, eventually we're going to have our own kitchens inspected by the USDA. Mm-hmm. Are you able to feed that food to your child? Do you have the competence to make that decision? And that's where this is going. It's just full on complete.
Got to get rid of that gas stove.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, exactly.
I have a hankering for some cheese, for some bread, for some milk.
And again, it doesn't stop there, because the health of your family is now. Are you spanking your children?
Oh, that's coming.
Fight
these battles now.
Yeah, I mean it does. I think Pastor Doug, who I think is being referred to, is he's the one who said you got to fight at the first crime scene.
That's right.
Resist at the first crime scene when they're trying to get you into the dark windowed van.
Yeah,
that's where you throw down.
That's where you throw down.
Yeah.
You kick and you scream there, but if you don't kick and scream there, when you get into the van, it's not like it's going to get better when they get you out of town. To that unmarked garage. It's not like you're going to have a better chance of fighting then.
One of the things that that the other side, the left, does very well is things like this, where we're out of state. We don't have any direct authority to function there in Pennsylvania.
But they can bring pressure.
But what they've done, they'll bring pressure, and they'll take, today is Tuesday, it's Blackout Tuesday, and what do? Everybody has a blackout all over, and everybody's asking on Twitter, why is the blackout? And all of a sudden, all the attention is there. Yeah. And so we can do that too. And so, Chris, I'm asking you, how can we engage with that? Can we get some cheese and take pictures with us? Say, free my boy Amos.
Who do we email to? Can we email Department of Agriculture?
Somebody? Yeah. What can we do?
Yeah, great question. You can find all that information at thelancasterpatriot.com/help-Amos. You'll find there information on how to donate. Again, they want to shut him down. He's got to provide for his family, for his employees. There are other farmers that also provide some products for him to sell to his network. So if you're inclined to donate, do that. There's information on there who to contact in the state of Pennsylvania, especially Russell Redding, who is the secretary tyrant of the Department of Agriculture. Contact him. There's other information there. You'll find information of how to become a member of his buying club.
Yeah.
As I understand it, there are still some products that he is able to ship. I don't have the details on that, but you can join his buying club. And stay tuned. I mean, I would love to see and of course, this is not something that Amos is going to do, but I would love to see something of a widespread effort, sort of like you had there in Idaho with the Psalm Sing, where people say, you know what, we want to consume this food, we want to sing praises to God. You cannot tell us that we are not allowed to serve our neighbor and obey God. And if the American people will just roll over on this, what will they stand up for? I'm not sure.
What's the website again?
The Lancaster Patriot, LancasterPatriot.com/help Amos.
Okay.
AMOS, help Amos.
That's right.
And I'm looking at it's got all the information, so I can contact the legislators there. He's got information there. Contact the legislators. He's even got a little body of an email that you can put in to kick it off. You can join Amos's club or
This is well laid out too.
I want to.
Super helpful. I do want to say one thing before we go. Thomas Massey every year has been working on federal legislation to get rid of a lot of this BS.
Yeah.
So Thomas is doing something at the federal level.
Yeah.
And he's constantly harping on this door because it's a big deal.
I just want to remember, like you said harping on the door. That's good. I'm glad. That's great. Harp on the door.
Harp on it. And buy some milk.
This is Gabeism. Don't forget, I mean, also, actually, we haven't mentioned this on the show yet. This week, what's the guy's name? The pro-life guy.
Paul Vaughn
from Tennessee?
Yep, from Tennessee. He's in trial.
He, remember, he had his home raided by the FBI. And I'm bringing this up now because this is not unrelated.
It's all connected.
It's all connected. Mm-hmm. A peaceful protester. This kind of peaceful protest was not acceptable because he did not burn down a gas, not a gas station, a police station.
On the altar. Huh?
Yeah, he wasn't protesting the right thing. Standing peacefully outside a Planned Parenthood or abortion clinic was later. His whole house was raided. Remember, we had him on the show,
and he's got like 8 kids or something like that.
I mean, guns.
FBI agents all over his property.
He was taken, in a car. He didn't know where he was going. I mean, he gave us this whole story. His trial's this week, so be praying for him. But again, these things are not unrelated. When the FDA, and the state of Pennsylvania are raiding peaceful farms, and the FBI is raiding peaceful Christian families for their beliefs because of standing with for the lives of the unborn. You're next.
That's right.
We just have to recognize you're next.
Hey, Chris, thank you so much for joining us. I'm praying for you. Thank you for doing this article and bringing light to this.
Yeah.
And I hope we get more people on board with this. Thank you very much, Chris.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Yeah, join the farm thing, the club. I mean, they got
club.
That's
they got
right.
buffalo
Get
milk,
some water
buffalo
milk.
ice cream.
Yeah.
All right.
Woo, cheese.
If you're single, get married. If you're married, have you some kids. And if you have kids, go baptize them. Until tomorrow, love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Love your neighbor as yourself. Go fight, laugh, and feast. This is CrossPolitic.
When tyrants take over, what's the first thing they do? Disarm. It happened in Russia, China, Germany, and most recently, Afghanistan. Why? Because disarmed people are easier to control. And over the last century and a half, American tyrants have been carrying out a slow, methodical disarmament that no one is talking about. State education. Tyrants know that education is warfare. Our rulers have a vested interest in making you totally harmless. They've got big plans and they don't want you getting in the way. Think about it. Would you rather fight an army decked out with high-powered rifles or a bunch of dinky water pistols? They know that if you can think critically, you're a threat. At New St. Andrews College, we want to graduate men and women who are dangerous. Dangerous to the world, dangerous to the principalities and powers, dangerous to spiritual wickedness in high places. Education can either arm you or disarm you. It can make you a threat or make you a useful idiot. So, where you get that education counts. Click the link to apply to New St. Andrews College today.